Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions and I do my best to answer. Got a really good question, a fascinating question, a question that I'd never really thought of before, but as soon as I saw it, it began to intrigue me. The question is simply this: does Satan know our thoughts? Does Satan know our thoughts? Interesting question. I want to say that the devil is not omniscient. He doesn't know everything, and he's not omnipresent, and that means he's confined to one place at a time. Unlike God, he can't be everywhere at once. So I don't think he knows what I'm thinking, because he's not all-knowing and he's not all-present. However, I do think that he does put thoughts into people's minds. While he may not know what we're all thinking, I do think he puts thoughts in our minds. We even see this in the Bible. For example, when Peter's saying, "Lord, don't go to the cross," Jesus turns to him and he says, "Get behind me, Satan." In other words, he's acknowledging that the words that Peter is speaking come from thoughts that the enemy has placed in his mind. That the enemy, the devil, Satan, whoever you want to call him, has placed that thought in Peter's mind to try and stop Jesus from doing what he's been sent to do. And Jesus understands that. And so when he says to Peter, "Satan, get behind me," he's acknowledging that thought comes from Satan and not himself. And so there are thoughts that I think that you and I think, that you and I have, that you and I wrestle with, that the devil has put in our minds. He puts them in our minds to try and get us to act on them, because he knows that if he can get us to act on them, then he can perhaps lead us astray. It becomes a slippery slope. He plants a thought, we act on it, it creates another thought and another and another, and on we go. But does he know everything? No. So does he know what I'm thinking? No, because he's a limited being, like you and I. Like Adam and Eve, he was created by God, but he chose to rebel against God and was cast out of heaven. We can read about that in Ezekiel 28 and Isaiah 14. We read about how God created Satan, or Lucifer, as he was named in heaven, the bright morning star. He was created by God, and because of pride that rose up and he tried to rebel against God, he was cast out. That's why he can't know all our thoughts, and why he's not omnipresent. He can't be everywhere. He's limited like you and I, because like you and I, he was created by God. As I thought about the question today, I got thinking, I thought, that there really, when it comes to our thoughts about our spiritual enemy, the devil, Satan, call him what you want, I think there are two extremes that we can fall into if we're not careful. On the one hand, we can think more highly of the devil than we ought to, and in doing so miss the sovereignty of God. We see the devil at work in every aspect of life and every aspect of society, and everywhere we're looking, we see the devil instead of seeing God. Or the other extreme is to think too lightly of the devil, to think too lightly of Satan, and therefore to minimize him. And when we do that, then what happens is we tend not to put on the full armor of God to protect ourselves from him, from him putting thoughts into our mind, from him leading us astray. And we do that because we've minimized him, and therefore we don't see his attacks for what they are, so we see no need to protect us. I think what's required is that we develop sort of like a middle viewpoint, if I could describe it that way, that while the devil is the god of this age, he is the prince of this world, God is sovereign. That means we recognize that the devil is at work in this world, that he is planting thoughts, that he is leading people astray, that he does stand behind so much of the corruption and the evil that we see in the world. But God is still sovereign. That means that he's still in control. He's still working all things to good. And therefore, as bad as it gets, we need never lose hope. We need never give up, because it's not the end of the story. God is sovereign. God is in control. So I hope that answers that question. It's a good question. But no, he doesn't know all our thoughts, but he does plant thoughts, and you need to be aware of that and recognize where those are coming from and deal with them as quickly as possible. And as I alluded to, your best defense is the spiritual armor of God. You can read about it in Ephesians chapter 6. Well worth reading, well worth getting into the habit of using God's spiritual protection to keep us from the works of the enemy that try to lead us astray and to cause us to miss the activity of God in the midst of everything that's happening around us. Well, I hope that answers it. Great question. Until next time, God bless.